Hey there, welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question today from Renee. I'll just jump right in and read her question. So Renee says, I struggle with saying no or sidestepping questions that I don't want to answer. When people ask me to do things that I don't really want to do, I almost always say yes. I don't want to seem unpleasant, selfish, rude, or mean. If I do say no or I just ignore a request, I feel really guilty, usually for days. I've read about setting boundaries and being assertive, but doing those things feel as uncomfortable and unpleasant as saying no. To avoid icky situations and icky feelings, I usually just avoid people who have been really nosy who keep asking for favors but never do anything for me. But someone told me it was not right to avoid people who make me miserable. Is there a way to deal with people who ask for too much? Is it okay to avoid people who are not user-friendly? Maybe I really have two questions. So thank you for sending this question, Renee. And the first thing I want to say, and this is going to sound really obvious, this is one of those things, there are so many things like this, where we know the answer, we know it, but we don't live in the knowing of that on a day-to-day basis. And because our mind skips ahead and kind of generalizes and gives us this experience that when directly asked, we know it's not right, but that's what we live in. So that's incredibly vague. So let me explain what I mean. So this whole thing about, which is just a portion of your question, but is it okay to avoid people who make me miserable? Or is that not okay? You know, I really want you, Renee, for yourself and everyone listening, for yourselves, to look at this like okay thing. I mean, according to who? Like, who's the judge of okay? Is God up there saying this is okay and that's not okay? I don't know, most people don't really believe that. Is it what's okay to you? If it's what's okay to you, is that stable? You know, because I know for me, something will feel okay in a moment, and then another moment, it'll not feel okay. So even that feels like it's always moving and changing. So if we can really just look at this piece of like, well, is it okay that I just avoid these people when I don't like them? Or is it okay for me to say no? Or is it okay for me to set boundaries or whatever? If we can start to really see beneath this. Again, our mind will just say, well, of course this is what you do, and of course this is rude, and of course this is play. But it's not, of course. That's what a mind does to make sense of a very busy world. It stereotypes, it generalizes, and it gives us these blanket statements, and that's wonderful. It's a wonderful feature of a mind because it's very efficient and it's trying to make sense of things for us, but it's a really unhelpful thing when we take that seriously. So we're walking around living in the experience of there's an okay and a not okay, and we get in big trouble that way. So just for that sake, I want you to kind of see a bit beneath this, and if you can start to take this what's okay and what's not okay off the table for yourself, it's going to get a lot easier already just by doing that. There is no okay. There's no universal yes, this is okay to do, and there is no universal no, this is not okay to do. There's just what you're seeing to do, you know, the best you can see to do moment to moment to moment. And thus far, the best you've seen to do in a lot of these cases is say yes, even though you don't want to, or avoid people. And that's okay. That's your okay. Like that's what you've seen, and the options that look available to you given how life looks to you so far. So I want you to see, Renee, I love this question, and I love kind of how you asked it, because I see this all the time with everyone. This is a huge thing with when people are trying to change a habit, find freedom from an addiction or anxiety, is we've been so taught and told and pointed to go right toward doing something different. So in your case, it's setting a boundary, being assertive. You know, it's all kind of about, well, how do I handle this? You know, and even just as I say that, it's like, of course it is. That's what we've all been told to look toward. Like, okay, I don't like how this is going, so how can I handle it differently? But you may have heard me talk about this. If this issue is an iceberg, when we go, or any issue is an iceberg, when we go straight to, okay, what do I do? How do I set the boundary? How do I say it? How assertive should I be? What should I do? Should I avoid or not avoid? It's like we're trying to move an entire iceberg by going only to the little tippy top that we can see and just making a change in that. So we get our little chisel and we're beating at the tip of that iceberg because that's the part we see, right? It's visible. It's right in our faces. Let's do something about this. But the problem is, a lot of problems with this. You run out of steam really quickly. You don't make a real dent in it. And like you're saying, you're saying when I try to set boundaries in the past or be assertive or say no, that feels just as bad as saying yes to things I don't want to say yes to. So you're kind of screwed. Like you're kind of in a bind here. And that's because there's this natural, it's not just you, trust me, everyone I see, me too, who's trying to make a change, we think about what we're going to do differently, and then we wonder why it's so darn hard and why it doesn't feel natural, and is this the right thing, and even when I work hard at it, it's not getting me very far. Well, that's because we're just looking at the tip. We're just focused on the part of this whole equation that we see, which is that you feel uncomfortable when people ask you for something. So we get in and we instantly go to the behavior and try to fix it or change it, but without seeing something deeper. So without seeing anything about what's beneath the water, what the foundation of that iceberg is, in this case, in this metaphor, without seeing that differently, we're not going to get very far by just beating at it from the top down and hoping the whole thing falls. And in your case, you're going to stay kind of stuck in this thing of, I should set boundaries, but I'm scared to set boundaries. I shouldn't say yes, but I always say yes, you know, like you're kind of stuck in that. So what you need is to see this whole thing differently, not to just do something different, to see it differently. And in particular, the thing you need to see differently is what this whole issue is based upon. There's a whole lot of thinking. I don't want to seem unpleasant, selfish, rude, or mean. So in your mind, when someone says, hey, Renee, can you go take my car and get the oil changed and pay for it and maybe wash it and rotate the tires and maybe move me out of my temporary apartment this weekend? And you're like, if I say no, I'm going to sound unpleasant, selfish, rude, or mean. If those are your options, no one wants to feel those things, seem like those things. If those are your options, you're going to do the best you can see to do. You're either going to suck it up and feel mean, or you're going to say yes, right? If that's what you're stuck with. But you're not stuck with that. So that's what I want you to see in this. That thinking that comes up, that, oh, this is bad if I don't say yes. You know, I'm going to be selfish and rude if I say no. That is thought showing up within you. It's this habitual little meaning maker thing that floats in your experience. It's like a cloud. It comes up. It gives this meaning. It's not the real meaning. It's just the habitual little way that your mind is used to seeing this thing. And then we feel that as if it's true. We feel that thinking as if it's real. So I get it. When you're in this, oh my gosh, I do not want to do this, but I'm going to be so selfish and mean if I say no. You're in a real bind in your experience, because that thinking that says I'm selfish and mean if I say no looks real. It doesn't look like thinking to you. But as soon as you can start to see it can't be anything else, it's always and only thought coming to life, looking really, really real, really personal, really full of shame and, oh no, I can't do this. But it's thought coming to life. It's like a little cloud has come through. And as you know, we all have our clouds that come through. They're very habitual, but they're not ours. They're not our opinion, and they're not our mind telling us anything that's true. They're just how thought shows up for us. So every time, Renee, your mind goes to, oh no, what are they going to think? Oh no, that's going to be mean or selfish. You can start to see, oh, I'm the one who doesn't want to do this thing. I'm not a mean or selfish person, but I have this cloud. My cloud just showed up. It's not even your cloud, but this cloud just showed up, right? This habitual thought just showed up that told me this little story. You're going to be such a jerk if you say no to them, but you don't have to buy that. That's not yours. You don't think that. I don't think that of you. No one listening thinks that of you. So it's not yours. It's just that it's been showing up in your head and coming to life in such a real way for so long for all of us that it feels like ours. It feels like us. This is everything. This is gigantic. When we can start to feel, think and feel stuff and see that we don't have to own it, that has nothing to do with us, then we're in this place where you can pick or choose. Suddenly you have a ton of freedom because you don't have to start with setting a boundary or forcing yourself to say no more often or anything that feels totally uncomfortable. You're shifting the iceberg from the base. So you're seeing the whole thing in a different way. If someone asked me to go do all that stuff to their car or move them out of their house or whatever, and it didn't work for me, I mean, I'm not saying like I'm special in this regard, but honestly, like I'd say, no, I'm sorry, I can't. And there wouldn't be any of that. Oh no, I'm so selfish, I'm so rude. So it's like a completely different reality just because of the thinking that's there. And again, it doesn't mean your mind is going to stop going there. That cloud might keep coming back and telling you the story about yourself over and over, but that doesn't matter because you don't have to, like, you can see something about that. You don't have to believe it. I really hope this is kind of making sense. It's the same when you mentioned that when you do say no, again, that's kind of going from the top down, saying, okay, how can I do this differently? I don't want to say yes, so I'll start saying no. But then you say no and you feel guilty for days and days. That too, when you're full of all this guilt, what do you think that guilt is? If we really look at it, what is that guilt? It's your mind saying, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. It's thought showing up within you. But as soon as you can see, wow, we all have this. We all have this little guy in there that just talks about stuff, you know, that tells us what we shouldn't have done or what kind of person we are. And as soon as we get to just feel into the space around that a little bit and see, oh, I'm the one noticing this. I'm the one thinking, there's got to be something I'm missing here. You know, it can't be that I need to say yes to every request, and it can't be that I'm a jerk every time I say no. There's got to be something I'm not seeing. And you know that, Renee. That's what got you to write this question. You know that. You're just looking in the direction of, okay, so I know I'm not seeing it right, so what boundary can I set? Or how can I do it differently? And I'm saying, no. Leave the behavior alone. That'll work itself out. Let's look toward the truth of what this whole dilemma is to begin with. And what it is thought. In your head, coming to life, feeling like truth, feeling real, feeling like it has something to do with you or them or whatever, and it doesn't. It's just thought coming up. So this is a great question that has nothing to do with saying no to people, nothing to do with boundaries, really. Have you guys noticed, like, none of this does? I basically give the same answer, point in the same direction to every single question, whether it's fear of having a baby like we had 2 weeks ago, eating in the middle of the night like we had last week, you know, scared to say no to people, feel horrible when I say no to people, or anything else. I've been doing Ask Amy for a little over a year. The 1 year anniversary was, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And there's been a huge range of questions and a very, very narrow range of responses. And that makes my job easy, but it's interesting. There's a lot to see in that. Honestly, there's a lot to see in that. So I really hope that you guys are getting so much value out of all these questions, whether or not they have anything to do with you or your life, because it's really the response and the answer and the place to look that's always the same. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you back here with a new question and an old response next Monday.